Out of all the characters within Helluva Boss, Millie is the most polarizing in the show. It's interesting because on paper, there's not much you can say about her that's necessarily bad within the show. However, it's the overall development, or the lack thereof, that causes a large amount of discourse within the Helluva Boss community. There are those that will defend her status of the show through thick and thin, while others have expressed their belief that she can be so much more. There really isn't a middle ground with how people see her. So I want to take a bit of a dive into what we know about Millie, what attributes make her shine, and what are those that make her feel left out. But before we dive into it, let's talk about ExpressVPN, which is today's lovely sponsor. There are plenty of gremlins on the internet who would love to gain access to your data, so it's best to keep yourself secured from those pesky hackers. That's where ExpressVPN comes in to help you out. ExpressVPN is a virtual private network service that encrypts your internet connection and hides your IP address, making it more difficult for people to track what you're doing online. Let's not forget that the service gives you access to servers in 94 countries. This means you can access any website you want and not have to worry about limitations in bandwidth. If you have any issues, ExpressVPN has 24/7 customer service that are more than willing to help. Still have doubts? Well, I got you covered, because ExpressVPN is offering their service free of charge for 3 months if you sign up for their 1-year plan. Just use my link to gain access to this awesome deal. It will also be in the description below. Much love to ExpressVPN for sponsoring this video. So when discussing the topics of Millie, saying that she doesn't have any sort of character or challenges thrown at her is a bit disingenuous in my eyes. Well, yes, there could be more to her. I wouldn't say there was nothing she brings to the table. There are certainly things that make her stand out in the cast that we have, and she has had challenges she needed to deal with. We do have to look for them and how they affect her relationships with others to see it, but they are there. These points do help us see that. I think everyone can agree that Millie is one of the sweetest characters in the series. She has a very bubbly personality, and easily brightens the episode when we see her excitement and welcoming attitude. One of the biggest examples is the episode Lululand, when Millie heard the news that IMP was going to the popular theme park. It really shows her positive burst to the point where it was incredibly childlike and wholesome. Even though Millie and Moxxie were not the focus of this episode, just seeing the two of them enjoy the park as the episode went on puts a smile on my face every time. Her ecstatic nature just oozes out with joy, and it can't help but give the audience that same feel as it wonderfully counters the serious tones that were within the main plot. Another moment that showed her sweet and childlike nature was in the Harvest Moon episode. This is where we had the opportunity to get a bit of backstory of her and Moxxie's relationship. She shows a bit of that childlike nature as she expresses her disappointment in not being able to participate in the games. It's always enjoyable to see how characters return to their childlike personalities when they return to their parents, and Millie shows that relatability when she interacts with her parents about the Harvest Moon games. Not to mention the slight preview of a sibling rivalry she has with her sister that is a mood for a lot of fans. Again, she's not necessarily the focal point of the episode, but she plays her part extremely well when she is called for it. She's easily someone that boosts a ton of fun within the episode in a setting that is supposed to be extremely grim, cause, you know, this isn't hell. So she's a character that is certainly important in that aspect to look at the brighter side of situations, and her expressive nature can heighten any scene to its peak. Girl boss is a term that is overused, but I think it's the best way to describe her when we see Millie get ticked off. She turns things up to 100 real quick. As I said, she is very expressive in many aspects. So she is someone who can be extremely aggressive when you try her or if you try to mess with Moxxie. She isn't afraid to let people know how she feels if she doesn't feel right about something or someone. When she needs to get physical, she shows that she is the strongest character in the group, and it's not even close. Just look at the latest episode in X's and O's. The fact that she has single-handedly taken out an entire mob with her bare hands shows how badass she can be when she needs to. We can also look at Spring Broken, where she took out a freaking fish to save Mox, and in Harvest Moon, where she tried to save Mox from Striker. I do believe that this trait has a lot of potential to be something that can be important to be a strength as well as a weakness. We have seen many women who are headstrong when they want to protect the people they care about, although it can put them in situations where it could expose them. We have seen Millie be in that spot before, and what she's able to do when she gets stuck in that predicament by helping in a different way. Millie's aggressiveness and powerful fighting ability is something many can easily be inspired by. Her overprotective nature is nothing to scoff at, and can easily be used in interesting cases depending on how the cards are played. So obviously, when we talk about the positives of Millie, we have to talk about the wholesome relationship she has with her husband Moxxie. It is clearly the strongest relationship we have within the series. Seeing how they interact with one another is always a treat to see. The two of them are very supportive of each other, and will do everything they can to not let anyone break what they have going. From their horny boss in Blitz to their horny ass ex in Chaz, someone who we have talked about in detail in my previous video. Some people like to forget, but their relationship has been challenged a lot throughout the series' run. When it comes to holding up a marriage, you have to push away a lot of adversities that can affect the relationship you've built with your significant other. We've seen a variety of challenges the two had to face, from the disapproval of Millie's parents in the Harvest Moon to the pressure from the likes of Asmodeus to be more open about their sexual experience. What's great about these challenges is that there's variety in them. Not every hurdle for this marriage is the same, and it gives us a variety of tests for both of them to figure out and overcome. A marriage in hell is a concept that isn't one that is thought of as a possibility, and it was interesting how they were able to make this work with their respective personalities and how they feel with each other. Although, a lot of this is mainly talking about how everything could work on paper, and it is mainly the base of Millie as a character. The show feels like there is supposed to be an overarching story rather than episodic, though there isn't a whole lot of connection between each episode. Still, there's quite a few instances where it feels like the show has a strong development for characters in each episode. We've seen plenty of moments for Blitz, Moxxie, Luna, Stolas, and Octavius that helped them grow. Millie, however, feels like she stayed the same. What those on the side of defending Millie's status as a character are missing is that people on this side do already see those positive attributes. However, the issues are that it is the bare minimum to those that view her character. It seems like most of the time, characters that are alongside her get more out of the scene. Her moments seem very minuscule and aren't really required to continue the story overall, and it comes to frustrate a lot of fans. People on this side see her potential in evolving, well, even more than what others believe to be enough, which is what these points represent. Yeah, there's too much history related to Millie that is not used to help flesh her out. Too many times that someone who is related to her and someone else, usually Moxxie, it is used as an obstacle for the other character more. There are so many seeds that seem to have attached to her that ended up not mounting to anything, and it can get very annoying for viewers to witness. Look no further than X's and O's as the biggest example, as we were introduced to Chaz as both Millie's and Moxxie's ex-boyfriend. However, her history with Chaz was not touched on whatsoever. Really, there were only moments to elevate Chaz's character as a sex addict, which wasn't necessary. There was nothing there for us to bring a different side of Millie we haven't seen. If her relationship with Chaz wasn't canon, none of the main plot would really change. The latest episode is a peak example of wasted potential to give Millie a chance for more development. Another example people would look at is in the Harvest Moon Festival and possibly looking more into her parents' disagreement and her marrying Moxxie a bit more. While I do think Moxxie trying to prove his worth to his family was enjoyable, I do believe that showing Millie's frustration with her family not wanting to accept him could help dive into the mind of Millie. It also would be nice to see her overcome obstacles that mainly focus on her specifically, not just in marriage. Which leads into the next point. Yeah, this is a bit of a spicy title for this section, but there's a strong reason as to why it's titled the way it is. All of her development is tied to Moxxie's hip. The entire previous section emphasizes that. While the concept of a married couple in hell is very interesting, a lot of the marriage's development is extremely one-sided. A lot of the challenges the marriage has to face, it mainly focuses on Mox having to overcome them. Millie is only used as more of a deus ex machina to resolve the issues when it comes to the marriage, which can be viewed as a counterpoint to her use of aggressiveness to protect Moxxie. It makes it seem that it's used as a gimmick rather than it being a great moment for some people. The dynamic between the two does seem equal, but how the story is set up when their marriage is the focus really shines the light on Moxxie more so than Millie. There also hasn't been much tension between the two either. Every relationship has some wrinkles, and that's especially the case in marriage. I'm not saying that we should dive into a story where there could be a chance they want a divorce. That would be the wrong move. But just moments where one could be peeved or upset at the other over a situation that occurred or a secret that shouldn't have been kept. It could give us a chance to give the relationship more layers and want us to root for them more, while also giving Millie more of an opportunity to get out of Moxxie's shadow. Because as of right now, many people see her as more of Moxxie's wife than her own individual self. With the floor we were introduced with, it's very disappointing to witness her not evolve from that. The floor and the ceiling feel much closer than they need to be for Millie, which is why so many want to see Millie's ceiling be raised higher. As she is right now, most feel that theirs. Really thinking back on what we have so far in the Helluva Boss story, Millie is the only character in the main crew that has not had an obstacle solely focused on her. She's a great supporting member in any plot we have seen in a variety of episodes. However, we have never had that moment where she was the focus on overcoming a problem she needed to face head on. I believe that there is a large number of fans for Millie as a character and would love to see her take on some adversity that could expose some of her own flaws. What if her overprotective nature proves to be too much to handle at times? Could we see one of her friends or family test her patience? What is she like when Moxxie is not involved in any way? There's a lot you can play around with when it comes to Millie, and many want to see it be pushed. Well, Vivzie herself has heard a lot to where she decided to talk about her thoughts on Twitter. On March 12th in our Lord 2023, Vivian created a thread that talks about her thoughts on the criticisms towards Millie. There's a lot in there, and I don't want to take too long, so we will focus on only the highlights. If you would like to read the entire thread, I got the link for you in the description below. So starting off, we are going to have episodes focusing on Millie, which is a great thing to hear. So I'm interested to see what they will do to expand on her character in them when we get to it. Then we get into her main gripe.
I think my personal issue with how she is characterized is that her only personality is being Moxxie's wife. But I do get it. When writing two married leads who are a newlywed couple, there's a lot of focus on their dynamic together, and Moxxie has had more plots outside of that. Millie's are coming, but I do feel like some ignore the character we are giving her in episodes where she isn't the sole focus.
So for the most part, I do agree that a lot of people feel that Millie is only seen as Moxxie's wife. However, what I don't agree with is the very last part of her statement here. I did a poll a little bit ago asking my community on whether or not Millie is developed. Most say no, but the comments in said poll prove that the fanbase do see some of her positive traits.
She could use more development and screen time. She has a lot of potential. I think it will blossom with time.
She has a personality, but I feel like she's a side character as a support character to Moxxie. I kinda wanna see them separate and do their own thing, because they're kinda like glue.
She doesn't need a tragic backstory. She needs an arc.
Agreed. It'd be nice to see a character who doesn't have some tragic backstory, but it also seems like they don't really know how to develop her without some type of trauma to lean on.
I would like to see more of her backstory, like how she joined Imp, but don't really object to her characterization thus far. She had a healthy childhood and knows who she is.
She's a queen, and we love her, but I just want her to have her moment to shine.
As I've stated, the issue isn't people ignoring her attributes, because if that were the case, people would care very little of Millie's development in the show. We all know the floor is high, but right now, it seems her ceiling for her to grow seems low. That's where the problem lies.
I feel what some want or expect is for her to have this tragic or dramatic story, like the others, and I just don't think a character needs that angst to be compelling. I adore writing drama. It's my forte, and that's why Millie is a challenge.
Personally, I don't think that's the case. Now, I don't know too much of the Helluva Boss fanbase myself, since I just got into it recently. However, I really don't believe people are expecting a character like Millie to have a super depressing backstory just because everyone else has some level of that. Her personality is incredibly unique to the series, so at least for my expectations, her development would come into testing that, whether it be in her backstory or with someone new. I don't believe there is specific demand to what we want in her development. As she stated later, drama does come in many forms. I would assume a lot of the fans know that, and the story has shown different forms of drama already. It's understandable that it can be difficult to write a character that you're not used to writing, but I do think it's underestimating the way fans think as a whole and the desire for more in Millie.
This is more just a come clean point to add, but it's relevant. Hazbin and Helluva are two sides of a coin in this Helluverse. Hazbin has always had a heavier emphasis on woman-led stories, so Helluva has steered more towards male-led stories. Doesn't mean I don't love my ladies in Helluva, but it's a thing too. But even with that said, there's so much more to come if we get to finish this series.
Now, I feel that this is not a good reasoning for the lack of focus on Millie or other female characters. Gonna keep it blunt, but not everyone that watches Helluva Boss is going to be interested in Hazbin Hotel. I know a lot of people are excited for it, but everyone has some sort of preference at the end of the day. I can't say too much on how Hazbin's hotel story is going to go since I barely know anything about it myself, though it can easily be frustrating to witness one show be focused on the guys while the other show focuses on the gals. I think it would be better to, give decent development for all characters in both shows. You pointed out that the shows are structured differently, which is why I think it's important to give the respective characters in each cast their time to shine, because not every Helluva fan is gonna go out of their way to watch Has-Been and vice versa. I recognize that not every character is going to get a large amount of attention in these shows. That's not how it works for any story. However, that doesn't mean that we should split focuses based on how the other show is going. It does feed my concern that Helluva's story is continued based on some of the reaction or critiques by those not in the process, because that could really get messy and water down the good that HB has given us so far. After all, I'm just a bat with a little opinion, and it shouldn't be taken to heart. Tangent aside, I am excited for what is to come with Millie. I do love her as a character, and she has plenty of moments that I can watch over and over again. So I am in the middle of this discourse. I love her floor, but I do want to raise her ceiling as a character. I want to see Millie shine at its highest, and having one episode focusing on her would almost automatically put her in the same status as the rest of IMP.